Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Age of Quarantine. My name is Chris Enriquez, and I'm your host. Tonight, I will be joined by multi-instrumentalist Alain Johannes. He is somebody that you might recognize from them Crooked Vultures. He also had played in the band 11, who were absolutely fucking way ahead of their time. And he also played in Spinneret, Queens of the Stone Age. His production list goes everywhere from Chris Cornell to No Doubt to Jimmy Eat World. He has an impressive resume. I can't wait to speak with him. And also wanted to mention that he has a new album out on the label Ipecac, which my band Spotlights is also on. And the name of his album, which you hear in the background, is called Hum. It's an incredible record. If you're a fan of his music, and if you know a little bit about his life, it's just a stellar record, start to finish. It's gorgeous. So many textures, and being that he is a producer himself, it's no surprise as to why it sounds as rich and textured and just as I don't know. There's just I'm at a loss of words, but I'm gonna go ahead and fade this out as we get him on the screen and ask him some questions. Gonna have him walk us through his musical and personal journey, and I'm really excited to do that, and that you guys are all joining us tonight. So let's get him on the screen, and we'll get this episode started. All right.
Hello. How are you?
Hello. How are you, Alain?
I'm good, man. I made it home.
Where are
I,
you? Are you in Los Angeles?
I am in Los Angeles right now. I'm at Josh's studio, just hanging out. But it took me like 5 months to make it home. I got stuck for quite a while in Santiago, Chile, because of the pandemic. And yeah, and I just made it back. I was quarantined 2 weeks, and now I'm back at my sister's and hanging out. So I'm totally stoked. And it's been a crazy ride for all of us, I'm sure.
I can only imagine, especially because you were in Santiago. That's wild.
Yeah.
I want to let everyone know, because it looks like all of your followers are now joining us now.
Awesome.
I did a little intro before that.
Awesome.
Yeah. I did a little intro before. Since they didn't see it, I want to welcome everybody watching to the Age of Quarantine. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I'm so honored and humbled that Alain Johannes has joined me.
Thank you, buddy.
Absolutely. Now, are you in? Is that in the desert where you are right now? In
No. Right now I'm in Burbank. I'm in Burbank, as you can see. I'm in the storage area of the studio because we're in the middle of doing a bit of fun tracking with this top secret thing, which just a fun thing. So I'm playing some guitar on, and this is the only spot I could find where I could be, just in case there's like something happening and somebody's got to be recorded or mic'd, or people got to talk about stuff and whatever. So I think I found this area here, so it's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, and no, it's been obviously like a really interesting period of time where the energy after making this record was to go out into the world and play shows, and I had the European tour booked and everything. And it was frustrating being in Santiago with my trio, so close by, and we couldn't get together. We couldn't do anything. We did a bit of stuff where like a remote recording of Can't Change Me, because with my trio and a couple of friends, we were going to do Lollapalooza, play Euphoria Morning in its entirety, which is, as you know, is a record Natasha and Chris, we did it together. That's his first solo record.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, and so like all this energy, like that, me, coming out and go on tour, like I just went through this period of sickness and go out into the world, and then to really contain that in again, it was really challenging, as I'm sure it was for a lot of us. But I feel like I've been kind of liberated, but I'm also being very careful. I just need to kind of pace myself and figure out what it is that needs to happen. Obviously, lots of music, and at this point, recorded music.
Absolutely, yeah. You answered my question, because I was going to ask you how you were managing to get through all of this insanity and how it affected your work schedule. You have a new record out right now called Hum. It's unbelievable.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, man, I'm a longtime fan. I loved 11, and I we'll get to that, but I always felt that 11 never got its credit due. Personally, just as a fan, and just to see you still doing what you do today
Mm.
with the new record. It's quite a trip. I want to discuss that, but I actually wanted to take a trip down memory lane with you, which is
Hmm.
what we do for the hour. If that's okay, we're going to kind of
Please, of
dig
course.
into your life.
Yes. Awesome. If whatever I can remember, I'll be there with you.
Well, since it's such a crazy negative time, I'll try to focus on most of the positive, and which is a great thing for us to entertain the fans that are watching, and for
Hmm.
everybody watching, if you do have any questions, there's a question mark box on the bottom of the screen. I'll try to get to your questions at some point. I see your comments. It's just hard to get to all of them and read them while we're talking. So try to take advantage of that, and I'll find some time eventually. So what is the first memory you have of realizing that music had a significant impact on your life? Just as it could have been when you were a kid, when you
Yeah,
first
yeah.
heard something.
For me, it was the Beatles, and I must have been 4 years old. So 66, and I just the sound, it's like it was just coming through the radio, and I just made my mom immediately, asked her to, and my grandmother too, to please, whenever you have a moment and you're near a store, can I get those singles, and then that just that passion for that. But my grandmother was really big into like listening to like a lot of Frank Sinatra, and then she had some Art Tatum, and she had some Charlie Parker. So there was a really cool blend, a combination of things. And she loved like operas and operettas, and Strauss, and there was always Bach. And so that access, especially because my mom and both my uncles were musicians, and more entertainer musicians, singers, less in the songwriting instrumental part, except for my Uncle Peter. And he was the one that put a guitar in my hand when I was like 4 years old and said, okay, these are the basic chords and off you go, kind of thing. And it was a big inspiration for me. So I would say literally 4 years old, that early on,
Wow.
knowing deep inside, because I remember that feeling, that not only the magical feeling of listening to music, but also when I actually became involved in holding it in my hand, meaning like being able to even make a decent chord, or find a melody on the guitar, that etc. I just suddenly it like, because I was quite sensitive, and so I looked at the world and I could feel the energies that were darker and anxious, either family members fighting, or stress, or adult stuff, or like had a kind of weird panic and anxiety and death anxiety really early on. And music was always a place where I would feel kind of connected to this otherness, or this eternal nowness, So to this day, it has this feeling whenever I'm on a stage, or I'm performing, or I'm writing, or anything, or when I have to grab a guitar and just improvise. It's literally like the way into a feeling of feeling, not only alive but also connected to all things. And I mean, I have no idea what the hell I would have done if it wasn't for that. I just, it's a really special thing. People can find it in other things too, obviously the arts, and
Yeah.
just a sense of leading a good life. But for me, man, I was really lucky that I was in an environment that where I could have access to it, and not be stopped. Sometimes somebody trying to stop you helps you actually push through, but it was nice to be around my family, because it was always around. Obviously later on in life, when I decided to make a career out of it, they decided to try to talk me out of it, because they figured I was smart enough to get a job that paid well, that wasn't music. I was like, seriously, you could ask me to just go become an architect right now? It's not going to happen.
Well, by the way, thanks to everybody. I see your comments. Don't forget to use the question box. I will get to it, I promise. But what you said just now is very telling. I mean, first of all, thank God you didn't end up becoming an architect, because you have one of the most unique careers in music that I've ever heard of in my life.
Oh, thank you.
Because you've taken so many turns, and what's
Yeah.
inspiring about you is that when you were doing your band, I feel like you found other things to do in music at the same time that led you on different paths as a auxiliary musician, as a band member for other musicians, as a producer. Whereas oftentimes musicians go, oh, well, I guess I have my day job. I'll go be an architect and then go on tour when I could take off, or
Right.
I'll go work at the fast food restaurant. But you
Mm.
found a way, and
Yeah.
also just to go back to your inspirations, you have a serious knack for melody and harmony.
Mm.
You notice it in 11, you notice it in your solo material, and it's no mystery as to why so many famous people have taken a liking to what you do and brought you into their worlds. Are you classically trained in any way, or is this all you figuring it out? Because it's really exceptional what you can do with your voice.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm not. I mean, Natasha was the one that she didn't need to be classically trained because she was born with perfect pitch and a musical mind like no other that I've ever encountered in my life. And so, in a way, me being kind of like the improvisational, you know, seat of your pants, like I have no idea what's going on, what I'm doing. Um, no, but imagine like I learned a few chords when I was a kid, and then when I was old enough, where you know, little like 6 or 7, when my mom sent me for guitar lessons. I was living in Mexico City, and fortunately or unfortunately, you know, I got shackled with this teacher that was kind of a sadist, and he would hit me, like he would hit my fingers
Wow.
with a ruler when I couldn't make the bar chord on the you know, I had a big regular size classical guitar, and I'm just this little kid, and they would buzz, you know, and I was working on it, but obviously the hand size and whatever. And so he was kind of like, and he kept doing it, and it kind of put me off the vibe. And then I told my mom that, you know, I just said I don't want guitar lessons anymore. I didn't really say why. I didn't feel like being a gossip about that, even though obviously that was not cool, you know. But it used to be more common back in the day. You know, I remember even in Mexico City going to school where, you know, you get a, you know, big old belt or whatever,
Right,
you know,
right.
you know, it was pretty common to be okay for the teacher or the, you know, 'cause one was a military school, the other was a Catholic school. Anyway, um, so then what happened is like I just decided that I would just figure it out for myself, and I became really uh, uh, obsessed and enamored with all the processes of music. And so I listened to records and try to figure out like what is that sound, who's making it, what do they look like when they're making it. So I was trying to find as much footage as I could, or back then it was harder, you know, obviously, but as many live shows. And once I saw somebody play an instrument, I kind of understood something more about this instrument, you know, the face he was making or she was making, the embouchure. And then the second I picked up an instrument, I just became in love with instruments. And so obviously that's how my collection grew. And I think to this day, like if you stop and ask me what chord is that and how does it relate to the rest of it, I can switch another gear on. And obviously after all these years of playing, go, okay, in my mind, go, okay, so these notes are in there. So I remember now that's a, you know, so it's a major chord, but it's got this on the bass, or it's got a, you know, it's extended. So there's an 11th, whatever that, but that's not generally how I like to think. It's almost like I'm trying to keep it still mysterious and magical. So, and that's why I love grabbing new instruments all the time. It's like I just recently, you know, the most recent one is a sarangi, which is a beautiful Indian classical Carnatic instrument, it's like a bowed instrument, and so you use the outside of your finger to excite the string into the sort of, you know, and obviously it takes a lifetime to master, and so I'm kind of crap at it, but I'm in there like using it. I mean, learning it and learning how to communicate through it because I love textures. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, there's a lot of textures on Hum,
Mm.
which I mentioned.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of textures in your music in general. Even like the first, I mean, I'm jumping around, but the first 11 record it doesn't sound like a band's first record.
No, no.
That's in like 1993.
Actually,
But
91 was the very, very first one.
oh,
Yeah, but I mean, you can't find it anymore. You know, it doesn't exist. But no, that 93 one. You mean the self-titled with Reach Out and all that?
self-titled. Yeah, you
Yeah,
put
yeah,
that on, and you're just like, holy shit, this can't
yeah,
be a band just starting out. I thought it was your
yeah,
first record, but
yeah.
uh, so like going back before we get into 11 and how you and Natasha met and everything, you're like vocally, who would you attribute like some of, because I hear like Beach Boys a little bit and like the way they
Hmm.
people. There's, you mentioned Beatles. I'm interested, even though this is kind of a redundant question, if you could talk about guitar influences a little bit
Yeah,
and vocal influences. I'm just really interested in kind of
yeah, yeah.
dissecting.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to understand that for me, like more than the hours I've spent playing my instrument, and I really did most of that by the time I was 18, and we, you know, we got out of high school and into the world. I did so much playing back then, like hours and hours a day. But more important than that is the listening that I've done to, you know, I don't know, thousands of hours and thousands of different kinds of music, different styles, different cultures, different time periods, and trying to find the common thread in all of them, which to me was communication. You know, communication, and that's when, in a way, it's kind of made it kind of totally normal for me to throw in an Indian classical or a gypsy type melody inside something else, you know, because there are no rules, especially in rock music. It's completely free and open. You can do whatever you want. No one's going to stop you, you know. And I love that, you know. So for me, I remember like my very first, besides obviously learning the Beatles songs, uh, for me was Paco de Lucia, you know. So that was like, you know, must have been 9 or 10. Django Reinhardt, and then obviously came, I heard Zeppelin and Hendrix, and I was like, you know, blown away and loving Page, but more, as much as Jimmy and Hendrix and Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck for me was a really insane, like I remember that simultaneous Brian May, yeah, early Queen, and then Jeff Beck, because there was something about the phrasing that was so vocal, and it was so like more than what you would expect from just a simple like playing, you know, notes or scales or melodies in just a standard way. It had this kind of quality, like the way Jeff and Brian pushed through it and made it this huge event, this vocalization of the guitar. And I became really interested in that in general by listening to, you know, whether it was flute or
Yeah, yeah.
you know, Indian classical music or Carnatic singing with an you know,
Right.
where
Like there's a
there's
lot
all,
of that in your
yeah, and
music.
so, you know, to phrase like that, you know what I mean, and so I think for me that was really huge, and then obviously from there there's all kinds of people that became huge influences. I remember, like, you know, seeing King Crimson, and during Discipline we saw three shows, two nights each, with Hillel Jack, Anthony, um, at the Roxy. Got to see, you know, incredible musicians, and listening to all kinds of stuff. I mean, the list will go after those are the seminal ones, you know. And then after that, Holdsworth was huge, because I remember having finding a vinyl, this French band called Gong, and it was called Gazoos. It was 1975 or 76. So I heard this vinyl, and this one of the earliest Holdsworth recordings, and then I made cassettes of it, and I would bring it to Bancroft Junior High, and I was enamored with him
Did you
the
say
phrase,
Coltrane? John Coltrane?
no, yeah, Alan Holdsworth, but because of that, I discovered, you know, I went through what he was basically reaching for,
Oh,
which is
right.
saxophone
Music.
phrasing, yeah. And so obviously then became, you know, I became in love with Coltrane and Dolphy and Miles, and um, Dolphy was a huge one for me. That's why I bought a bass clarinet and a flute and an alto sax. I mean, there was, it just kept going. I could just get so excited about it. Vocally, for me, it was always Stevie Wonder. You know, it
Wow.
was,
Okay.
yeah, it was always Stevie Wonder, and obviously Aretha, and a lot of you know, blues stuff, Blind Willie, um, and a lot of the Motown stuff. It's just that this kind of really emotive and soulful singing. Um, Freddie, I love Freddie, obviously, you know, on the Queen stuff, but vocally, then for me, in terms of like just because of where my, you know, kind of baritone tenorish sits, you know,
Right.
um, there's the, you know, very similar to some of that kind of phrasing and feel is I like to think that I was trying for, whether I sounded like that or not, was Paul Rogers, obviously, in Bad Company and Free. Um, and then later on, I just Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. I heard a cassette in the early '80s, which is, you know, Sufi music from Pakistan, and that whole kind of like flamenco singing, Camarón de la Isla, playing with Paco. You know, it's like this kind of huge emotive thing. And then, you know, after Natasha and I met, then she would just, you know, inspire me and influence me as well. You know, I mean, and Bowie, of course. I you know, just
Dude,
keeps
you are
yeah.
no joke, man. You have, you know, out of everything that you said, though, I mean, everything makes sense. And actually, you really dissected it in the best way possible. But the Brian May reference to your
Hmm.
guitar playing, I can
Hmm.
hear not only the playing, but the sounds that you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
on
Hmm.
a lot of your stuff. But the Stevie Wonder reference, because you have a very soulful voice, especially on the early 11 stuff. I can hear that
Yeah,
too. Makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
When you so Your first band was, you mentioned Hillel just a second ago, seeing I think you said you went to the Roxy and saw King Crimson with him. Your
Yeah.
first band, many of your fans know this already, but those of you who don't, Hillel Slovak and Jack Irons, the original members of the Red Hot Chili Peppers,
Hmm.
started playing with you um, in Los Angeles. When did you end up in Los Angeles, California, and
We
meeting
moved.
you guys?
Yeah. So it was the very last day of 1974, and we stayed with my grandma's friends for a bit, and with my aunt Frankie, who was in, and I knew that was for me, for as a musician. I was so excited to be mid 70s, and suddenly we're living off of Sunset Boulevard near Tower Records and the Sunset Strip and whatever.
Yeah.
And I went to Bancroft Junior High starting 8th grade, because it was half of 7th grade when we moved, and I started to learn English, and I remember being in homeroom, and Jack Irons showed up dressed up like Gene Simmons, because they were doing the talent show. And
Okay.
I hadn't met him, but as he walked by, he's got this codpiece, this kind of metallic armored thing that looks like exactly, amazing Gene Simmons costume. And I don't know what got into me. I just wondered if it was protective. And so he walked by, and I just gave him a little gentle punch on his nuts. And he's like, "Ow, what an asshole!" I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And then he talked to Hillel about this asshole Mexican Chilean that you didn't know was from Chile, born in Chile. And he goes, "This asshole kid." He goes, "Well, what's he look like?" His name is weird. He's got like an eye, like Alain Delon. He said, "Oh, yeah, he's an amazing guitar player. I heard him play the other day. We should ask him to jam." And so next thing you know, we were jamming together, and we started our first band. We didn't have a bass player until high school. So we did our first like little talent shows and like playing at parties. We were called Chain Reaction, then Raven. And then we changed the name to Anthem. Once we got to high school, we had a bass player named Todd Strassman. And in 11th grade, he decided to stop because he wanted to concentrate on his grades. And our friend Michael Balzeri, was a Flea, was playing jazz trumpet. He was a really amazing musician. So we kind of asked him to join the band. And Anthony Kiedis was there too, but he was more in school drama and plays and stuff like that. So he kind of became our MC here and there. It was after we got out of high school and into the years following. First Flea left and joined Fear, and then we got a different bass player. And then Anthony and Flea kind of moved in together, and then they kind of started with the idea with our friend Gary Allen, that was doing a performance artist, and he invited Anthony and Flea to put something together, and they came up with a concept of the Chili Peppers. And I was there for the very first show. They played 3 songs, and it was just like instantly insane and awesome. And
Right.
so it was this like, okay, I was like, oh, this is gonna be trouble, because we have 6 guys in 2 4-piece bands or whatever. um and so they ended up staying with me, Hillel and Jack, for What Is This. We changed our name to What Is This, and you
Right.
know
Right.
uh uh Flea and Anthony get Jack Sherman and Cliff Martinez, were friends of ours. And so the very first What Is This record, which is the Dave Jordan EP, is the 4 of us. Then I met Natasha right before recording the Todd Rundgren produced one. Hillel left in the middle of that, went back to the Peppers, and then Natasha had joined What Is This. But then when Jack left, we decided to just do an album as Walk the Moon. Back then was our name, just a duo, exploring more like the songwriting and the fact that we could do whatever we wanted, because it wasn't really a band; it was just the 2 of us, which kind of laid the foundation for a lot of the prototypical 11 vibes. And after Hillel passed away, sorry, this is such a long convoluted stuff. I'm
No,
trying to do my best.
no. This is what it's
Okay.
for. People are
Okay.
watching. They want to know.
Awesome. And so when after Hillel passed away, and Natasha and I were in the middle of doing our second Walk the Moon record, and it was really hit us hard, and Jack kind of quit the Peppers, and then after about a year and a half of that, we got together and we started to jam, and he did the Joe Strummer tour, where he played with Xander and Joe and Lonnie Marshall, and then after that we formed 11. We did it, the very first record, which no one's heard, very few people have heard, called "Awake in a Dream." And on that record, which I can't even find anyone like from that label from
Yeah,
back
it's not
then.
on. Oh man,
It's not
really?
on Spotify. It's nowhere.
God
Um,
damn.
yeah, but we had we had opened up for Pearl Jam, because Eddie was Jack's friend, and they actually we had this amazing tour opening up for the Peppers and Nirvana that Pearl Jam got instead because they had a better label. And
Okay.
so they felt so bad that they invited us to open up for them for '91. So their album just come out, and so during that touring, it was always tricky because the album would have sounded much heavier than it actually did but we had this producer that was more in the pop world that they had got. He was a good producer, but he did all the Robert Palmer stuff, the Simply Irresistible and all that. Anyway, and so that's why the 11:11 record sounds so full on, because we were just ready to be exactly as we were after having toured with Soundgarden and Pearl Jam. So okay, so
Yes.
that brings us to that. Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about how did you and Natasha meet? Because that's for most people watching know that you guys were married, you became band members, and then had a long partnership as a production team, and you did so much together. And there are themes of that in your solo material. So
Yeah.
just for anybody watching that may not know the history there.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did you two meet?
Well, I mean, it's actually like something most people can't even wrap their head around, and for me, it's really natural. I actually had a dream I was going to meet her, and in this dream, I'm kind of like on the edge of a foresty thing. It's kind of dark, and there's a teeter-totter or a seesaw. I'm going like this, and I can't see, but I can feel a female presence on the other side. I said, "What's your name?" And I hear this voice say, "My name is Natasha, and we're going to meet." So then I wake up the next morning. I tell my mom about this dream, and about 2 hours later, my childhood friend Aaron Jacobus, who worked at A&M Records and later was instrumental in signing Soundgarden, brought her to the house to meet me. And so my mom opens the door, and there's a girl named Natasha. I just told her, yeah, yeah.
No
So
way.
yeah, exactly. And so then Natasha walks into my room, and I turn around, and for a second, I almost recognize her. And then we get to know each other. We play each other music, and literally within 2 weeks, I moved in with her, and we were together for 24 years. It was like this instant, like weird.
Wow.
Yeah, this insane, like the both of us made one superhuman being kind of thing. It's like we were so connected in such a bizarre way that being quite so different. She I mean, just even musically speaking, like the fact that I was so improvisational and she had this genius mind. I mean, she did so much of the arrangements on Euphoria Morning, and you could play her a piece of music once, and she remembered everything that everybody played.
Was she classically trained or
Yeah,
formally?
I mean, basically, she went to the conservatory, but she didn't really have to because she already at being a little 2-3-year-old, she already, her brother showed her all the notes on the piano, and then she could already tell you whatever you were listening
Wow.
to. So
Yeah,
she was.
she was an amazing player.
Yeah.
So wait a second. You got to take me back. This is crazy. So your friend that worked at A&M
Yes, Aaron
showed
Jacobus.
up to your house.
Yes, because he saw Natasha. I mean, to this day, I can just tell you that Natasha is the most. I've met a lot of amazing people and hung out with a lot of the best composer and musician I've ever met by far.
Yeah.
And it was so basically like she was on an Entertainment Tonight because she'd been in 2010 the movie as an actress,
Okay.
and she was answering about music, and so my friend Aaron was intrigued by her, and so he invited her for a meeting, and in the meeting she said, well, so what do you want to do? She said, well, I want to record and make solo stuff, but or possibly a band. I just need to find a collaborator that is on the level, and so he took her to a bunch of different people that he knew,
Right.
and she didn't dig anybody, and they all had like gold records and whatever, but it wasn't impressive. And he says, there's this one guy that I want you to meet, but I've been kind of afraid because you might just hit it off and whatever. Anyway, and so yeah, so he basically back then, you just show up at somebody's house, it's like there's no calling ahead. So he showed up while I was in my room, and my mom opened the door, and it was really trippy because like I just literally had the dream I was going to meet her, and it actually happened.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 22 and she was 28 at
And
the time.
2 weeks later, she ends up being a girlfriend.
That's right. I mean, it was like we were trying to avoid it because we felt that kind of attraction and tension, but we were also collaborating musically, and we didn't want to ruin it just in case it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And so it was a little scary. Otherwise, I think it would have been like pretty much instantaneous. But we immediately had this thing, and so we ended up just embarking on this thing. The very first few years were really lean. We were like, pretty much always like just on the edge of being on the street and whatever. But we kept pushing and develop. We had a lot of support from her parents, feeding us every day, and it just once we started at 11, we just felt we had arrived at a place where and we kept trying to fine tune it. So in the beginning we were being engineered and produced, and then I'd had experience since I was a kid recording myself and been around equipment, and then we just decided to just keep pushing and doing it more and more on our own. And so now after Thunk, our third record, we had toured and with Soundgarden opened up, and Chris stayed with us after Soundgarden broke up the first time, and he for about 3 months, and we were just messing around writing stuff. We did Sunshower, we did Ave Maria, and then he invited the president of A&M, because they were signed to A&M, to the house to listen to our music, and the guy loved it so much he offered us a record deal. And then Natasha was crazy enough to have this idea to ask him for that budget as a PO box to a music store so we could have our own studio. And so he said yes, and we ended up spending $200,000 of A&M's money buying this recording studio that we did. Avant-Garde Dog, Howling Book, Euphoria Morning, recorded.
That's with Chris Cornell.
Yes, with Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Euphoria Morning. So that gave us that where we finally had the autonomy to always because when you have your vision and you're kind of every part of it is important, and when you have the ability to push through, then it's a little easier. Like if things, if you're not quite hitting the mark, you can only look at yourself, so it's a really good self-referential and self-feedback kind of process, which I've always loved. But I was always interested in the sonic aspect because to me it was part of the thing. I mean, you can have an amazing sound on its own in the room, and then if you hear it recorded the wrong way or not working for the track, then it's kind of important to figure out what that is and how to get it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, what was you guys put out 6 full lengths? You were around for many years. You did a lot of big tours. It might be a stupid question to ask, but I'm just curious. I know that the fan favorites, I think, were the self-titled one, and God, it's just escaping my memory right now. But there were 2 records.
There's Thunk, Avant-Garde. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What were you about to say?
Thunk is the one that has Why and Nature Wants to Kill Me. Yeah. Those were the Hollywood records, like 93 and 95. Yeah.
What was your personal favorite record? I'm sure it's hard to pick.
I mean, I think for me, it's the very last one. It's 2002. It came out in 2003. It was called Howling Book. We did it on our own. We didn't have a label because after Interscope, well, it was A&M that became part of Interscope, and after they did a zero job in promoting Avant-Garde Dog, because we actually recorded it in '97, and we waited to put it out till after Euphoria Morning so that we could be concentrating on that tour and that record. But the good thing about that period is that we met Josh in Queens, and we toured together, and then became part of the extended family.
Oh.
Yeah, so so during the Rated R tour, 11 opened up. We had Avant-Garde Dog had just come out, even though, like I said, it was 3 years old already, the recording of it. But Howling Book, Jack came back after being in Pearl Jam for a few years because he left after Thunk. And we got Greg Upchurch to play on Avant-Garde Dog, and Greg was also the drummer on the Euphoria Morning tour.
That's right.
Yeah, and then just that record, and then we were in the middle of recording our 6th record because it was 11 records that are actually up. The 6th one we were recording literally like a week before Natasha got diagnosed with cancer, and so we had to stop and concentrate on the treatment. So there's like 5 songs that we tracked in 2 days that need finishing, that are just instrumentals. That whenever I have the balls to stare at those and address it again, I had a loose plan to let some of my friends finish them, but now I know that I have to do it. Anyway, they've been around for a while. I've talked about it for a while. But
I was going to ask you about that because I knew that there was a record that you were working on. So there were no the vocals never happened.
No, the vocals are basically like we had just, like in true 11 fashion, and the way that I do a lot of the stuff, we literally just write them right before. So they're fresh. And so we worked them up that morning over 2 days or 3 days with Jack, and then just recorded them, and maybe a couple of them have small overdubs, but they're pretty complete because, we went after this kind of physical graffiti, like live in the room kind of sound. And we were playing so amazingly well together. And then even listening to the roughs of those, they're super inspiring. So at some point, it'd be good to look at that. And then there's also like a 12 or 13 songs that were recorded as demos before we had the recording studio, and it was one of the reasons we didn't we decided to never do demos again, was because they existed before, and then by the time we got the record deal and the studio, like enough time had passed that we got a little bit bored with them, and so we only kept like 2 or 3 out of the 13, and we wrote all new stuff for Avant-Garde Dog. So some of those songs that were recorded in the little 8-track recorder are sitting around that I'm trying to figure out what to do with at some point.
I mean, it was a horrible tragedy, but the fact that you have the music to still is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
I'm going to take some questions from the audience. I have a bunch sitting in the box here, and so we'll take a break from me talking. And for everybody watching,
And me yapping.
oh no, this is what you're supposed to do. This is all
Okay.
about you. You're the star of the show. So everybody watching, this is The Age of Quarantine. If you missed the first half, this will end up on the St. Vitus Bar IGTV, so you can watch the whole thing afterwards and
Awesome.
rewind, or you could watch it on YouTube when it gets up on YouTube in a few weeks. So I'm going to take some questions from the audience, and thanks to everybody that's been watching and commenting. Okay, here we go. Okay, we got a bunch of questions that I wonder if you can even answer. We'll see.
Let's try.
At CD Souza 86, is Alain at Pink Duck Studio?
This could very well be the back room of Pink Duck, but who knows? Maybe not. I'm not at liberty to say.
That's right. We're live right now, so we don't need him getting like weird stalkers showing up to where he's at. At Mike Klin 7, favorite song collaboration with Chris Cornell?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, Euphoria Morning in its entirety is so incredible. I mean, really enjoyed doing Sun Shower and The Keeper. God, if I must pick one, and it's not, if I can't just say all of it, I think Steel Rain, maybe just a little. I don't know. It's hard to say, but Steel Rain, because it's so moving. I remember him and Natasha working out the arrangement and the chords and the harmonic structure of it, and I remember recording him and the way he was singing it, and we used this particular microphone that just really laid into the grit that he had for that one song, and it's got this melancholy and this pain in it that is so powerful. And then, you get hairs standing up, like not only listening to it, but imagine recording his vocal and comping his vocal afterwards and stuff. And yeah, so Steel Rain is a short answer.
Unbelievable, man. I mean, I'm just a fan, but I cannot imagine what it was like to work with him and be on stage with him and be in the same room. That's wild to me. And you just have such a collection of so many talented friends. It's unbelievable. Okay, so we have I was going to ask this question. This is the obvious one, which, to be honest, I mean, everybody's wondering because of where you are right now. But T. Taylor 82, are you making a new Them Crooked Vultures record?
Not at the moment. I mean, it's so funny because I'm not really the person to ask, because obviously I'm not in charge. Maybe I'm in 2 photos of the band, obviously live at every single show. So no, not at the moment. But we did a couple of years ago we did have a hang and a dinner thing, and there's always a possibility. I mean, I would love to see that happen again. Obviously, I had just the best time ever. I mean, it's like you got to pinch yourself when you're on stage with John Paul Jones every night. Not to mention, of course, how much I love Dave and Josh. But
I saw an interview where Dave Grohl recently mentioned that he would like to do a record at some point.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, look, I'm here. I don't decide on that one. So,
how do you react when you're asked to be in that band? Like, what's your initial like reaction?
Well, at first I just, it was basically, going into the studio and being of service there, engineering and being part of the process um, there. And then afterwards, I was asked to be part of the live show, and obviously, like at first, you're just like,
Uh-oh. I think that the internet froze. I don't know what happened there. Can everybody hear me and see me? I think that Alain is frozen on the screen. I don't know if it's just me. Oh,
there I
there he
am.
is. There he is.
I'm back. Okay, so okay, so hang on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, something happened where the phone went dark. Anyway, uh, okay, back to what I was gonna say. Like I was quite a big part of the being in the studio with the record, and I was hoping that was going to happen. And obviously, I was asked to be part of the band live. And what was amazing about it, on several levels, besides being on stage with John Paul Jones, and I got a couple of funny stories about what that feels like. Like, okay, for example, I'm on stage and we're like, oh, we're doing it, and he walks over and he gives me this kind of look, and then he does this crazy, insane bass fill, and then I'm just smiling like this, and then suddenly I hear this feedback, like this really loud feedback, going, "What the hell's happening? Where's the feedback coming from?" And then I looked down, and I'd let go. I had a really high gain sound, and I had let go of the guitar, so I'm just like, with my hands by my sides, and it's me feeding back. So now I have to play it off somehow. Just like, yeah, well, obviously it's like, pinch myself
Oh
kind
my
of thing.
God.
Um, yeah, I mean, and then the way that those songs developed, and we developed as an improvisational unit, as a jamming unit. Obviously, like the songs and the shows kept getting longer because we were exploring each night, longer versions, and our chemistry, the way that we felt each other, was pretty uncanny because it's not a given, that amazing musicians will will connect in that particular way that makes them kind of like a multi-headed monster. um, but we'd certainly got there, and that was obvious from anyone that's seen a show or YouTube
Oh
since
yeah, dude.
then. Yeah,
I saw that show when it came to New York. I was on fucking
the
Roseland.
Roseland show. You were at Roseland?
I was at Roseland, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
before it closed down. Yeah,
Oh, so sad. Well, anyway,
I saw some really good shows of a lot of your friends' bands there before it shut down. Queens of Stone Age, I'll never forget. The Songs for
mm-hmm.
the Deaf. Foo
Mm-hmm.
Fighters on the first record, or maybe the second record. But
I think when
yeah,
I was in Queens, we played Roseland too, and I can't remember if with PJ Harvey where we played. But it wasn't. I'm not sure if it was Roseland or not. I don't know if you got to see the Hope Six tour, but that was
no, I
recently.
wish I
Yeah,
got to see that. I never saw PJ Harvey. I'm a huge fan
yeah,
of the others as well.
yeah, yeah.
I got a couple more from the audience before I dive back into mine. This is a funny one. At Bo Tucci, how would you describe Mark Lanigan in one sentence besides badass?
Sweet, intimidating, and brilliant.
There you go. Okay. At Antonio Silvac 11, Queens of Stone Age song that you enjoyed the most playing live.
Oh man. Oh God. I think Someone's in the Wolf, especially the Montreux one. That was a huge one every time. The feel of that. I mean, so many. I mean, if you got to pick, it's really hard to just pick one. I mean,
Right.
obviously, you could say well, but it could, 5 minutes later, you could think of another or whatever, because quality music has so many facets and so many angles and so many uh, manifestations within its arc that to just choose one over another. I mean, obviously, I could answer something, but it's really the overall, isn't it? The feeling you get from all of it, and it's hard to separate one from the rest. But I
Absolutely.
guess I guess practical for the purposes of this interview to just say one of it.
I'll take this one last question because it's a funny one, and then I'm going to get back to mine. But John Gregorio, who is a better bass collaborator, John Paul Jones or Flea?
Oh Jesus! Well, it's so different. Flea was part of a really formative and interesting period where we were all just kids, and with JPJ, obviously, it's such a different story because the legacy of him, preceded him. But I really loved jamming with both. Really, I mean, we both spent my band when we were kids, we would improvise a lot. We'd turn off the lights and just jam for hours,
Yeah.
and that I think that really prepared all of us for that stuff. So I'll have to say a tie on this one. Okay, if I could take that as an answer.
There you go. I mean, you're talking about the greats. It's like being like, what's it like playing with John Bonham? Like, it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
really,
Oh
dude.
man.
To a couple people watching, which I just addressed this, if you're just joining us now, this entire interview will be up from the beginning
Hmm.
as soon as it's over, which we have about 15 minutes. So all you have to do is go to @St. Vitus Bar, and you'll see it on the IGTV. So thanks to everybody for your questions. I'm going to try to get back to mine while we have some time left. I'm going to jump around a little bit just because we have 15 minutes left and it's going to go by quick.
Yep.
So I want to focus on your solo album. It's not your first solo album. You put out a record in 2010, and it was, a lot of it in tribute to Natasha. I can't
Hmm.
imagine how, like, what that must have been like for you, not to only go through that. And by the way, I don't know if Monica mentioned it, but one thing we both have in common is I'm actually in a band with a couple, and we're both on the same record label. So
Mm.
we're a three-piece. So I
Wow.
can, like, and they're married, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm like the Jack Irons guy,
Yeah, yeah,
basically.
exactly. You're the Jack Irons. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
yeah, yeah.
Well, it can be a beautiful thing and also a little uncomfortable and a little bit unusual. But then it also means that you can be kind of like somebody that kind of predicts the energy flow and can get in there and fix it before it happens. You know what I'm saying? Like for the sake of the music or whatever.
Oh no,
Peacemaker.
totally. I
Yeah.
mean, I personally, when people ask me that, I'm just like, actually like being in a band with a couple instead of like five guys, because five
Right. Right.
guys can get old pretty quick. But it
Yeah.
must have been such a tough thing not to just go through personally. But then you put a record out. Was it hard? Like, like did you at any point think that it was going to be tough to get back into writing and performing, or was that not a question? Because I know you know, you went into it and you continued doing so much amazing stuff. But like,
Mm.
what was, talk about what it was like going through that and then making that first solo record. And,
Well, I mean, I think so. So after Natasha passed away, in July 2nd of 2008, we did a tribute show for her at the Henry Fonda, with Josh and uh, Polly and Matt Cameron and Joey and BOC and Jesse and Kyle Gass and Jack, Jack Black, like all the friends, and we did this beautiful thing, and that was like the one of the things that, I mean, I would have just fallen apart, and I don't know if I would have survived it. I had very practical reasons to stay focused, because my mom had been diagnosed with cancer before Natasha, and she moved in with me after Natasha passed away to kind of help with that whole process. Um, before like 2 months before, it was just Natasha and I during most of the was 11 months since diagnosis to her, she passed away. Anyway, so then my mom got sick again, and I had to really focus on her, because she was living with me, and I was like trying to financially help, so I was doing projects at the house. But one thing that happened immediately is that Josh noticed that he wanted to look out for me, so he invited me to engineer the Arctic Monkeys record that he produced.
oh, so such a good record, man.
Yeah, a Humbug, and we did it in Rancho. And then he just kept trying to get me busy, so he brought me in to work on the album, on the Crooked Vultures. And then during the tour of Crooked Vultures, I had my cigar box guitar, which I'd been traveling with, and my friend Maddie Barato had made for me, and that's where the songs for Spark started to appear, which is basically, seriously, just like out of the need to communicate a thank you, my love for Natasha, all that stuff. It's like they appeared in this really kind of like succinct form. Not They were just like little tiny wisps of a song, and then during in the middle of a break, I had like a week off, and in 4 days I recorded Spark, and a lot of it was written,
Wow.
finishing the lyrics, but some of it was already there. And then I recorded it and printed it, and then Josh heard it and says, "I have to, I have to help you put this out." Ended up being out on Ipecac, um, And then, you know, just being able to have the catharsis, and what coincided with was him inviting me to go to Chile. I hadn't been back. I was born there, and at 46 years
Right.
later, he's inviting me to open up for them, and he specifically so I could meet my father and
Wow.
my whole, you know, I'd never met him before, and I had two brothers and cousins and a whole family from my paternal side that I'd never met, you know, which is a whole longer story as to why. But so my uncle Peter arranged for us to meet, and because Josh made it possible, I went and opened up for Queens, playing songs from Spark, and you know, it's such a crazy
Wow.
full circle. But he understood that me reconnecting with my country of birth and my family there was going to be very important for the healing that had to take place for me able to survive something so huge, because we were so completed by each other that to survive something like that it's not in other words, it's something more than that I couldn't have possibly done without the love and care of my friends, you know. Um and so then, you know, after that, you know, just so now I go back to Chile, and you know, eventually playing shows there and hanging out with my dad whenever I can, and then my
What
mom
was
and
that
him.
like meeting him?
It was incredible. He was a musician. He wrote his the songs and his own songs. Super creative. Also was, you know, kind of like unsung a little bit. I mean, he was known. He was part of the Nueva Ola, which would have been that back then. But he was just a natural musician. He was a you know, improviser. He played several instruments. You know, played harmonica and piano
Well, there's
and
something in the blood, man.
yeah, and what they say, autodidacta, which just means he taught himself. You know,
Yeah.
and so I saw this connection with him, and then 2014, my mom passes away on January 2nd. He passes away on January 30th,
Damn.
and there's two new moons, and there's new moon on the 2nd and the new moon on the 30th. So I rushed down there for this. You know, we had the service for my mom. I rushed down for the service for him, and that's when I made my second solo record, Fragments and Holes, that I put out on my own. You know, so it's been like that, this thing about music creating this self, um, not like self-help, but it's just this place I can enter where I can process all this in a way that I don't, it doesn't keep pent up. It doesn't mean that, you know, suffer fully from it and the sadness and the loss, but I'm able to put it in song, and I'm able to communicate things, um, and say thank you, and express love,
Yeah.
communicate something universal that even though it's happened to me, that it happens to all of us, kind of thing. And so I've been really blessed with that, you know, being
You're
able to do
very
that.
blessed, very blessed. The life that you've lived and been able to get through, even through the tragedies. I mean, what Josh did, what you mentioned, your friends did for you, and how they were there for you, and how Josh was there for you, which I
Hmm.
did. You know, I don't know how many. I didn't know to the extent, you know, that
Yeah,
your
huge.
involvement in his life and the projects and opening up had to connected to that.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing. It's really inspiring, and it's even more inspiring to see you continue to be
Mm.
creative and to work and to do things. Your latest record, Hum, like I mentioned, is amazing. It's on Ipecac. I know that death has sort of been a constant in your life. I mean, it is in all of our lives, right?
All our lives, yeah, yeah.
But you've experienced it from, you know, early on with Hillel, and then with Chris Cornell later on. How
Yes,
did that
exactly.
affect your? How did it affect you going into Hum? Because I feel like I read a little bit about how
Yeah.
death had something to do with lyrically and all that.
Well, I found myself. My uncle Peter passed away after my parents, and he was the one that put an you know, guitar in my hand, and he was an amazing entertainer, on stage till his 60s. I mean, always jumping up and down, and he got ALS like Stephen Hawking out of nowhere, and so he ended up like being the person that had all this ability to, you know, perform, and so entertaining, and so full of life and energy, to be just completely paralyzed, you know, trapped inside his body, you know. And then he passed away, and then when after Chris passed away, it just kind of like I just for the it it was more, it brought up all this other stuff from before in a way that was so different, and I hit a wall with my health, like mental and physical, and so I had a really rough year, and it ended up You know, then we did the show at the Forum last year in January, and I went to South America and did some shows, and I was planning to do a solo record, and then I didn't. I was too ill, and my mind was somewhere else, and I ended up going on tour to Europe and doing solo tour. And when I got back from the solo tour after having produced a really cool band in Italy, in November, I ended up getting sick with something that was very suspiciously like COVID for 2.5 months in bed, with like antibiotics doing nothing, and like then trying to figure out what the hell it was, breathing treatments, being in bed. Um, and that's when was born, getting up from bed after all that time, and creating the record in 12 days. The 10 songs, literally the only thing I had was the chord sequence and melody and Mermaid Scream and the picking part and hum. Everything else was, yeah, everything else was created each day. Like I kept imagining the record in my head as I was sitting there ill, and a lot of it is suffused with this like trying to put things um to bed in a way, or really like finally letting go in a healthier way, and trying to see what to do, what I could do with my life, with what's left. Be creative all the time, and all this other stuff, and being thankful that I've made it. So like if morning comes, for example, was a thought I had while I was laying in bed, unable to breathe with whatever the hell I had, which is like thick, like muddy, lung, unable to breathe stuff. And it's impossible to know if there was like an early version of, or not early version, but if I was COVID or not. And then, then I went out into the world, finished the recording and the mastering, and went down to South America to play this Euphoria morning show. And then 5 months later, I'm back. So, it's crazy.
I love the story behind how this came together, because and it kind of goes back to the creative process that you explained in the early days of 11.
Yeah.
And like it's just so crazy though to think. I mean, you have a lot of positive comments coming from people about how special you are, and
Thank you.
like, yeah, man. I mean, you got to know that right now, I'm sure, but it's probably doesn't get old hearing it, right? Just the fact that, like, sometimes songs just come out, but the kinds of songs that you come out with, man, they're not like these little punk rock songs. Somebody just mentioned, and I loved it. He said that your album Hum is like church for headbangers, which I thought was really
that's awesome.
I love the videos that you put out. I'm gonna drop those right now. So there are videos out for Hum, If Morning Comes, Hollow Bones, and Free. I don't know if I'm missing any other ones. They're all on
that's
YouTube.
it. Yep.
Before, unfortunately, this interview we're gonna get kicked off Instagram in 3 minutes. But before we go, do you have any? I know you're doing some quarantine jams with people that are also on YouTube. Do you have anything planned that we want to maybe announce, or anything that we can know about coming up?
I mean, basically, right now, I find myself, since the playing live is not going to happen for about, whatever, into next year. I really, and also, working in the studio is not so easy. But I really have this need to make music right now. So I think I'm going to make a few instrumental records to explore, maybe a thematic and conceptual each one. But that's what I'm feeling right now. Is like make these albums and then put them out like on Bandcamp, and just have them in one place. It's not like a big deal, like having to like have lots of fanfare about it. Just kind of they appear. It's kind of an extension of what I do on Instagram, because I'm in a very blessed place right now that anytime I engage with music, or I kind of quiet myself so that it comes through me with instruments or whatever, that something comes out that is, I feel is good quality. So I might as well just take advantage. And since gonna be sitting at home quite a bit without being able to travel, might as well make a bunch of records in the next few months.
Yeah, I think that everybody would be really excited if you did that. Because everything you do is good quality. And
thank you.
We have a comment here: "Long live 11." And
thank you.
Earlier, someone said "Long live Natasha" as well, and
Yes.
I'm
Long
glad
live
we got to
Natasha.
talk about her.
Thank you,
Um,
Chris.
yeah, absolutely, man. I want to thank you for doing this before we get cut off, and I hope that one day, since we're label mates, we cross paths at
Let's
some
do it.
point. Yeah,
Absolutely.
usually
Yeah.
in California at some point. But dude, Hum is awesome. You're
Thank you.
awesome. I
Thank
can't
you,
wait to
Chris.
find out what you're doing with Josh.
Hmm.
Send our love to him.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, everybody watching, again, if you want to watch this from the beginning, it'll be on the at St. Vitus Bar, Instagram, IGTV. Alain, we're going to let you go
Awesome.
back to work.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and really appreciate it. And thanks for that awesome hang. Felt great.
Absolutely, man. Stay safe out there, all right? And keep being
Yeah. Thank you.
blessed.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. Take care, man.
Take care. Bye.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. My name is Chris Enriquez. I'm from the band Spotlights, and this has been The Age of Quarantine. And if you want to watch past episodes, you can go to my YouTube channel, Christopher Enriquez, and you could go to the Revolver Magazine YouTube channel, where there are a couple other episodes on there as well. And I just want to say thanks again for spending your time with me, and stay safe. We got more episodes every day at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow we have Game Face. On Thursday we have Covet. And on Friday, I guess I'll have to check back. But it's all going to be on our Instagram, so check it out.